सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्। ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह
वीर्यं करवावहै
तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै।
ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्ति।
हरि ओम।
Om Tat Sat. Om Namah Shivaya. Morning. So we had finished the Prathama Adhyaya, first chapter of the Kathopanishad. And now we are moving into the Dvitiya Adhyaya, the second chapter. The second chapter is divided into 3 sections. And do you remember what section was called?
Valli.
So 3 vallis are there. And this chapter has 48 mantras. The first valli, the first Prathama valli, consists of 15 mantras. And the subject matter is, there are 3 actually. So Atma-jnana sadhana, and Atma-jnana phala. Shankara gives the introduction to this section where he says that in order to be able to understand the Atma, to recognize the Atma, a very subtle intellect is required. And in this section is examined the case of those people in whose case the subtle intellect is missing. What is the cause for the subtle intellect not to be there, right? And when you have to look for that, when you have to eliminate an obstacle, because the absence of a subtle intellect, Sukshma Buddhi, is an obstacle for understanding Atmajnanam. And therefore, if you want to eliminate the obstacle, what is the first step? Remember, we are saying absence of Subtle Buddhi is the reason why you cannot understand Atma. Atma Jnanam is difficult to digest. What is the cause for the absence of subtle buddhi? Why do you need to know that? Because in order to eliminate an obstacle, you have to understand the cause, recognize the cause. And what is the obstacle? It is, in our terms, we use the word port, P-O-R-T. So we have used this before. Do you remember what port stands for?
Possessions, obligations, relations, and transactions.
Possessions, obligations, relations, and transactions. Right. Now, giving up of this port is essentially sannyasa, but we have to start with the reduction of that port. And therefore, the first section talks about the mind which is not controlled, which is an important sadhana, freedom from a wandering mind. Because a wandering mind, which is extroverted and always looking outwards, will be preoccupied with the universe, with the prapancha, and will have no time for Atma. Therefore, the thing is, the mind should have the capacity to focus on the Atma. In the first 2 mantras, therefore, point out that the mind which is wandering, the mind which is extroverted, such a mind is an obstacle for Atma Jnana. So, with this, we'll go to mantra number 1, second chapter, first section, first mantra, 2, 1, 1. So please unmute yourself. We will read. Paranchikhani vetrinat swayambhu.
Paranchikhani
स्वयंभू
Paranchi khani vyatranat swayambhu.
Paranchikani Vyatranat
Tasmat parang pasyati nantaratman.
Tasmat
Kaschidhiraha pratyagatmanamaikshad.
Kaschidhira Pratyagatmanamaikshad
Avritat chakshur amritattvamichan. So the translation is interesting. I'll just mute you all, then we'll go ahead. So it says that Swayambhu. Now, Swayambhu literally means what? The one who is born by himself. So here that word Swayambhu refers to Ishvara, the Lord. So he says Swayambhu Khani Vetrunat. Vetrunat means destroyed. Khani is literally, openings. So they're talking about the sense organs. So Swayambhu Vetrunat Khani. The Lord destroyed the Indriyas, the sense organs. How? Paranchi. Paranchi means making them look outwards, extroverted. When creating us, the Jiva, the Lord made the Indriyas extroverted, and therefore, symbolically, Khani Vedranat. He destroyed the sense organs. Therefore, Tasmat. Therefore, what happens? Pashyati Parang. Those sense organs, Pashyati, perceive, Parang, outside. They look outside. Na Antaratman. They don't look inside. And Kaschid Dhiraha. Some discriminative persons, some advanced Vedantic students, Amritatvam Ichan, desiring immortality. What do? Avritaha Chakshuhu. They withdraw the eyes, they withdraw the sense organs. And once having withdrawn the sense organs, Ekshat, they see Pratyak Atmanam, the Atma with it. Okay. So this is the textual translation. And we have to understand that every human, please do not unmute yourself if you're talking in the house. It's disturbing the recording. Okay. So every human has been provided with Jnanendriyanis, the five sense organs, which are very useful for us for conducting our journey. And here he is saying that even though these instruments have a lot of utility for us, in the case of all human beings, they have one very major flaw. And that flaw is by birth itself. What is that flaw? The sense organs look outside. They are capable of seeing only the anatma. And therefore, since they look outside, they don't have the capacity to look inside. They are not able to see the internal world. And therefore, they cannot see the atma. Because what is the field of the sense organs? Shabda, rasa, gandha, sparsha, rupa. And Atma has none of these qualities. Atma has no Shabda, no Rasa, no Gandha, no Sparsha, and no Rupa. Therefore, these sense organs cannot perceive the. And that is the reason why spiritual ignorance persists. And therefore, this mantra says that by making the sense organs extroverted, Ishvara has seemingly destroyed the capacity for us to be spiritual. And therefore, your entire life is spent in laukika activities, materialistic activities. Right. So khani literally means opening, and therefore the five openings, which is the panchakhani. Paranchi means directed towards the external world, and you have to supply over. The make that sense organs have been made such that they are directed towards the external world, and therefore one does not come to know the Atma. Now, Kaschit Dhiraha, the rare person, Kaschit, very rare person, some people, the discriminative one, Dhiraha, what have they done? They have understood the limitation of material success. So this person recognizes that there are three defects associated with anartha. And we have talked about these defects many times. So I will just name them without, you know, explaining. Dukkha Mishritatvam, number one. Atripti Karatvam, number two. Mandakatvam, three. Right? I assume everybody is familiar. Anybody who doesn't know what these are?
Yes, please review them.
Okay. Dukkha Mishri Tattvam. The every sense object which you have consists of what you call pleasure, of course. Sense organs give you pleasure, but dukkha mishri, all those pleasures are mixed with dukkha, with sorrow. So what is being said is that any enjoyment always has the seed of sorrow. How does it have the seed of sorrow? Anybody wants to explain what is the three things involved in that dukkha mishri tattvam?
It's the pain of acquisition in the first place, then pain of maintenance, and then pain of losing it.
Very good. So dukkha mishri tattvam means this pain, that effort involved in acquiring a sense object, the effort involved in maintaining the sense object, and the effort and the pain involved when you lose a sense object, that is always mixed with the pleasure which you get out of enjoying the sense object. So that is dukkha mishri tattvam. Then atrapti karatvam means whatever sense object you get, it never satisfies you totally because there is always a better one. So atrapti means non-satisfaction. You can never be fully satisfied with sense objects. And the third, bandhaka tattvam means it is in the nature of bandhaka. It binds you by making you dependent upon that sense object. So these are the three defects associated with anatma, with sense objects. Dhiraha, the discriminative person, he recognizes these limitations. Then what does he do? He desires to move away from those things. He desires immortality, which we called moksha purushartham or shreyas in Kathopanishad. The earliest chapter we saw is that stress. So having desired immortality, amritatvam icchan. What does it do? Chakshuhu avritaha. He as if covers his eyes. So symbolically saying that eyes are covered, which means that he is turning away from the external world and withdrawing into the internal world. Activity is converted into contemplation. So withdrawing from sense pleasures. Now the question is, why does the Upanishad insist that this discriminative person has to withdraw from the external world? Why this emphasis on turning inwards? Remember that the mind can focus only on one thing. You can focus either on the anatma or on the atma. I'm not saying exclusively. Okay, so because some amount of anatma focus is unavoidable. Why do we say that?
We need the body for our study and for our daily activities.
Daily activities. You need to get up, you need to walk, you need to brush your teeth, you need to eat. Okay, so some amount of focus on anatma is inevitable, but you shouldn't be obsessed with it. You shouldn't be obsessed with the body. Your focus should be more on the atma. Also, another important point, you can focus on your mind also, right? How meditation, more concentration, all these things. Remember that mind is very much anatma. Focusing on the mind is very much focusing on anatma. As long as you focus on the mind, even with the very, you know, uh, honorable intention of improving the mind, what are you doing? You are focusing on anatma only. And therefore, as long as anatma focus is there, atma focus cannot take place. So, a very important point. A lot of people believe that improving the mind is a very major activity in spirituality. We are not saying don't improve the mind. You can improve the mind to a reasonable extent. Okay, some amount of concentration, some amount that is necessary for you to be able to sit in the class and assimilate. But it cannot be that solely. But if it is sole focus on the mind, you are not going to be focusing on another. Right. That is why in Bhashyam after Bhashyam, if you remember, Shankaracharya takes a lot of pains to refute the Jnana Karma Samuchayavada. Jnanam is knowledge, karma is action. Jnana Karma Samuchaya means action with knowledge. What is the basic logic? Karma requires anatma improvement. Jnanam requires what?
Knowledge of myself. Atma Jnana.
If you have to put it in terms of using the anatma, what is jnanam?
Resolving the anatma.
Yeah.
Resolving the anatma into yourself or the
Cognitive.
mithyatvam of the anatma falsification. Okay. So jnanam is anatma falsification, karma is anatma focus. They are opposed to each other. They cannot go together. Okay. So that is why this you will find that every bhashyam, Shankaracharya will definitely point out that jnanam and karma cannot go together. Okay, now how does this discriminative person turn away from the external world? Very simple. He finds a teacher, he goes to teacher for Shastra Upadesha, for learning the Shastra. And as he learns the Shastram, what does he see? Ekshat. He discovers. He discovers what? Pratyak Atmanam. Pratyak Atmanam is that Atma, which is his innermost self, which is the real nature. So that Pratyak Atma, Pratyak here, remember, literally Pratyak means inside. So Pratyak Atmanam, we often say what is inside yourself. But inside is not inside the body. That will be a incorrect understanding. Pratyak Atma means the very essence of yourself. Right. Now, if you look at the Pratyak inside, you ask yourself what is inside and what is outside. What will be the answer? Supposing you have to define yourself as with this word Pratyak, what is inside and what is outside?
We can we can we can recognize the consciousness within ourselves and
What is the outside part?
the existence.
No. The existence principle, consciousness principle is the inside part, right? The Nama Rupa is the outside part. So it is as if the Nama Rupa, which is the body, it is as if the body is covering the consciousness principle, the consciousness existence principle, the Atma. Right. So when you say Pratyek Atma, you are literally speaking, you cannot say Atma is inside. Why? Because it's not the Atma which is in the body, but we have seen in Bhagavad Gita also, Atma is all pervading. All bodies exist in the Atma. Right? Like all buildings, all planets, they exist in space. Similarly, all the bodies in this universe, they exist within Atma. Even space, for that matter, exists within Atma. Therefore, the literal interpretation of Pratyeka as inside Atma is inside the body is not correct. You have to think of it as I recognize the consciousness principle inside the body, in the mind. But that principle is not restricted to the mind. It's restricted, not at all restricted. It is there everywhere. So it's only the recognition of the principle, of the consciousness principle within the mind, which is being referred to as Pratyak Atma. It literally means that Atma which is also inside the mind, everywhere, but also inside the mind and recognizable only in the mind. Now let us look at the derivation of Atma. So we actually saw this derivation in the text Atma Bodha, which we took long, long ago. Right. Now, this derivation is actually borrowed from a Purana called Linga Purana. The first is Apnoti iti Atma. Apnoti means to pervade. So that which pervades everything. And when you say that which pervades everything, you are actually saying that which is spatially unlimited. That is Atma. Therefore, Atma here is Paramatma, Paramatma which pervades the entire universe. In fact, the universe itself is within that Paramatma. That's one definition. Yach apnoti. So, yasmat apnoti, that which pervades everything. The second one is yat adate. These are all not new concepts. We have seen them in Atma Bodha. I'm just refreshing your memory. Okay. Adate means what?
That into which everything is resolved.
That into which everything is resolved. That which eats literally. So Atmate, everything is resolved into that. When is the whole universe resolved into Paramatma? Pralaya Kali. Right? So during Pralayam, the entire universe resolves into that Atma. That Atma is that entity into which the whole universe resolves. That entity is called Paramatma or Atma. The first one is what? That which is spatially unlimited. That in which the whole universe is present. That is Atma. Second one is that universe resolves into this Atma. That is Paramatma. The third one is Yat Atti. Atti means eats. So that which eats everything. Now here the word eat has to be taken in the sense of experiencing. So that which experiences everything, including sorrow and happiness. How how will you say that Atma experiences sorrow and happiness? Because we say
Through the
Atma
body,
is Akarta, right? Akarta,
It's because
Abhokta.
it's
through the
because of
body,
the Atma that all experiences are there.
Yeah, so it is, you have to see what is it? What is that entity which experiences Sukham and Dukkham?
Sukshma Shariram.
The art,
Sukshma
body,
Sharira.
mind,
The
sense
sense, yeah.
complex.
Sukshma Sharira. Remember, it is the subtle body which experiences. The physical body doesn't experience. Sukham and Dukkham. Physical body may experience pain, but it doesn't experience Dukkham. I hope that's clear to everybody. Pain and sorrow are two different things over here. We are not talking about mental pain. Mental pain is Dukkham. So when you say that which eats everything, you're saying that which has all experiences of happiness and sorrow through is the subtle body. That subtle body is has the capacity to experience. Why? Because it has consciousness lent to it by the Atma. So this is the Atma from the Jiva's viewpoint, okay? Because I've got a Sukha Shariram and a mind and I experience Sukha Dukkha. Therefore, I say this is the Atma. So that's the third one. That which experiences through this Sharira. So RC. Then that which exists permanently. Santato Bhavaha. Atati. That which experiences permanently. This is again Atma, but you can say it is the absolute you. What did we call this in Tattvabodha? That which experiences permanently, meaning what? All the three frames of time.
Sat.
Sat. Sat is that which exists permanently across all three frames of time. Okay. Right. Now let us move on to the mantra number 2. Please unmute yourself. We will chant. Paracha kaman anuyanti balaha.
Paracha
पराचकामाननुयन्ति
kamananuyanta
बालाः
balaha
Te mrityoryanti vitatasya pasham.
te
ते मृत्योर्यन्ति
mrityoryanti
विततस्य
vitatasya
पाशम्
pasham
धीरा अमृतत्वं विदित्वा
अथ
अथ
धीरा
धीरा अमृतत्वं
अमृतत्वं
विदित्वा
विदित्वा
ध्रुवम् अध्रुवेष्वीह न प्रार्थयन्ते
ध्रुवम्
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 अध्रुवेष्विह न
अध्रुवेष्विह न
प्रार्थयन्ते
प्रार्थयन्ते.
So what is said in the last verse, the first mantra is again being repeated here. What is the idea? If you are extroverted, you will not be able to look inside, to look at the Atma. If you have Atma Ajnanam, it leads to bondage. And if you're introverted, you look inside. And if you look inside, you Atmagyanam. Atmagyanam leads to moksha. So extrovertedness leads to bondage. Introvertedness leads to moksha. So he says balaha, the children, not children in terms of age, the children in terms of understanding. Therefore, the immature people have not learnt a very basic lesson from life. What is that? That extrovertedness leads to bondage. And therefore, what do? Anuyanti. They chase. Anuyanti kamaha. Paracha kamaha. Paracha means external. Kamaha means pleasures. Therefore, balaha paracha kamaha anuyanti. These immature people, they chase pleasures of the external world. And when they do that, what happens? Te yanti. They enter mrityoho pasham. So pasham means can be taken as a net or a nose. Mrityoho pasham means they enter the web of mortality. Mortality, old age, disease, death. They enter. Why? Because mortality is the intrinsic part of every anatma. So whenever I choose mortality, whenever I choose anatma, I am also choosing mortality. Therefore, pasham. Pasham means the trap or the net. And Shankara says, Shankara wants to give a little bit of, better understanding for the word pasham. So he says, pasham is when you have the nature of constantly attaching to this physical body and constantly detaching from this physical body. So if your activity is such that you are caught up in this birth and death cycle, death, rebirth, that cycle is the pasha, is the trap, is the net, right? And then he says vitatasya. This is all pervading, right? This net, this pasham is available not only in this universe, in this world, it is available in all the lokas, even Brahmaloka. So remember that even Brahmaji, not Brahman, Brahmaji, Lord Brahmaji, Hiranyagarbha, is not free of this web. Why do we say that?
It is also a post, or it also has a time
Supposed
frame.
it has a, it has
Limited.
not a very, very long time, but it is limited. Brahmaji also dies. A new Brahmaji is born. Okay. So Viditva, having discovered this idea, what happens? The discriminate ones, dhiraha, dhruvam, amritatvam, they want to get absolute immortality. Dhruvam, amritatvam, absolute immortality, atyantika immortality, which means moksha. They want moksha, and therefore what do? Na iha prarthayante. They do not look for anything. Adhruveshu, among the impermanent, that is, in this world, they don't have any objectives because their objective is moksha only. Now, Shankara says, why do we use the word dhruvam amritatvam? Amritatvam means what? Immortality. And there is only immortality. Immortality normally means immortal. You are either immortal or you are not immortal. Why do we add this adjective dhruvam? So is there more than one immortality? Then only it makes sense to add an adjective, right? Supposing there's one book on the table, I will say bring the book. Supposing there are two books, then if I want you to bring me a book, what would I say? I would add an adjective. Bring the red book, or bring the fat book, or bring the big book, one of those things, right? So the adjective here, which is added dhruvam, it implies there is more than one type of immortality. And Shankara therefore says there are two types. One is relative immortality, which we call in Sanskrit what?
Apekshika.
Swargaloka.
Ape.
Apekshika amritatvam. And one is absolute immortality, which we call what?
Atyantika.
Atyantika amritatvam or moksha. Now, what is apekshika immortality? What is relative immortality? Shankara says that the people in the inhabitants of other worlds, other lokas, have a longer life than we have. For example, the inhabitants of Brahmaloka have a very long life. They die only when Brahmaloka dies. And therefore, their life is very long compared to human life. Therefore, apekshika amritatvam, relatively immortal. But it is not absolute immortality. Now, this relative immortality, apekshika amritatvam, what is the karanam for this? What is the cause for this? You would remember
A
Bhagavad
lot of
Gita.
punyam.
Karma. Upasana along with karma.
Very good. Upasana along with punya karma. Okay. That, of course, we are talking about Brahmaloka. But you can have just pure karma, very good karma, which takes you to different lokas where you are having a longer life than on earth. So that either way, it is karma, punya karma along with upasana, which is the karanam, the cause for apekshika amritatvam, relative immortality. While for atyantika amritatvam, moksha, absolute immortality, there is only one cause, and that is atmajnanam. And because this is absolute immortality, Shankara says that is why the adjective dhruvam is added to indicate atyantika. He's talking about atyantika immortality, absolute immortality, moksha. So the dhiraha, he desires absolute immortality. He desires moksha. And what is the definition of amritatvam, of immortality? How would you define immortality? You should be able to. You're all long-standing Vedanta students.
Mm,
You are neither born, you don't die, you're always existent.
No, freedom from the cycles of birth.
Practically, when you say, I'm immortal, what do you mean? You cannot be
I was
meaning that your
born,
body is immortal or your mind is immortal because it is not.
I was not born and I will not die.
What does it mean? What does I mean?
Aham Brahman.
I am pure consciousness, not a
Aham
part, not a
Brahmasmi.
product, not a property of the body. The five features of the Atma that we have seen, particularly assimilate, knowing it as myself.
Anybody else?
Om Brahmasmi.
Brahmasmi is also correct. Which means what? When I say I am Brahman, what do I mean? If I have to explain it to you that I am Brahman, what will I say?
Hello, Raviji, may I try?
Please, Natarajan.
See, whenever you talk of mortality, the element of time comes because mortality is defined through time. So
Yeah.
if you're beyond time, beyond space, that is what makes you immortal.
Correct. So when you say that I am Brahman, you are actually saying what? I am abiding in my own higher nature. Right? That's how Shankara defines Amritatvam. Pratyak Atma Swarupa Avasthanam. Abiding in your own nature as Brahman. Which means what? What is abiding in your own nature?
You never lose sight of the fact that you are that
Correct.
consciousness.
You never lose sight of the fact that you are Brahman. You are constantly aware of the fact that you are Brahman, even while you are brushing your teeth. Okay. Even while you are in an ICU with 100 needles sticking into you, you are aware that you are Brahman. That is called residing or abiding in your own. A very important idea to remember. Abiding in your own nature is constantly remembering that I am Brahman. And that's why Yamraj says, Iha na prarthayante. They do not seek or depend upon anything in this world. Why? Because every dependence, every expectation is is binding. It's a threat. It's an emotional threat for you. And therefore, it's okay to have expectations. But all expectation should be non-binding. Non-binding means what? I want something to happen. If it happens, I'm okay, great. If it doesn't happen, then also I'm fine with it. I accept it as the working of Arabdha. So, what is it that we should do now as advanced students? Having understood that I am Brahman, I should constantly remember that I am Brahman or I am Atma. Okay. While remembering that I'm Atma, the fact that I'm remembering, it means what? There is another factor present. What is that?
Expectation.
No, no. If you're remembering, it means your mind is there.
Anatma
Anatma.
is also
Anatma.
there.
So, while remembering that I am the Atma, I do the remembering through the mind, which is the Anatma. And therefore, there's nothing wrong in trying to improve that mind. Okay. At the same time, accept that there are certain imperfections, defects in the Anatma. Your body grows old, you get backaches, you get spinal problems, your hair goes white and falls off. All this you accept. So accept the imperfections of Anatma, improve it if you can. Address that imperfection, use medicine, you do exercises, you use hair dye, improve it if possible. But what is needed
Always remember that.
Always remember that you are the non-improvable Atma. The Atma which does not require improvement, has no defects at all. That Atma you are. Therefore, it is okay to do physical exercise, walk every day, do meditation, concentration, all is fine. But throughout that, you have to constantly remember that I am the Atma. That is called abiding in the Atma. Therefore, this person doesn't look for anything adhruveshu among the mortal anatma. Because wherever anatma is there, there itself atma is also there. For this understanding that within the anatma, among the anatma, there is atma, I need a focused, non-extroverted mind. How to get a non-extroverted mind? Yamaraj does not say. Where did we study?
Chitta ekagrata.
Sadhana Chatushta.
Sadhana
You
chatushta.
study everywhere. Bhagavad Gita talks about karma yoga, upasana yoga, sadhana chatushtayam. So anywhere where you have studied about sadhana chatushtayam, you have studied about how to get a focused mind. Right? So this is what is the text of this verse, this mantra. We'll take one more mantra. Mantra number 3.
Daraji, it's Yamraj who's saying adhruvam adhruvesh iha. So iha refers to this
This
sloka.
world, this loka. Adraveshu means the mortal, not mortal, it's not immortal.
So when he says iha here, he's actually referring to the Prithvi
Iha
loka.
is this universe, Adraveshu, the impermanent. Iha Adraveshu means yahan pe impermanent, in this impermanent world.
Okay, okay.
Okay, we look at mantra 3, we will chant Yena Rupam Rasam Gandham
Yena
येन रूपं रसं गन्धं
रसं
Abdan Sparshagamascha Maithunan
शब्दान् स्पर्शागंश्च मैथुनान्
Ete Naiva Vijanati
एतेनैव विजानाति
Matra Parishishyate
किमत्र परिशिष्यते
Etadvaitat.
एतद्वै तत्
So he says, Yena etena alone. By this alone. This alone means what? By this Atma alone, Vijanati. I know or you know. Rupam, color. Rasam, taste. Gandham, smell. Shabdham, sound. Sparshan, touches. Maithunam, conjugal pleasures. And he says it is this Atma alone by which you know all this. Kim attara parishishyate. What remains in this world? Etadvai tat. Etadvai tat means this indeed is that. Etadvai tat. This indeed is that. What is this tat? What is this that? Why is Yamaraj telling Nachiketas? This indeed is that.
That what you asked for?
Exactly. So this indeed is that Atma or Nachiketas which you asked about. Okay. So Kim Atra Parishishyate. What remains in this world which is outside the Atma? You have to connect that to Yena Etena Eva. By this Atma alone, everything is in this world. So this Vijanati, Rupam, Rasam, Gandham, etc. It represents everything in the world. So what exactly remains outside the world? Nothing really remains. So all these mantras Actually, the first and second Valli of this chapter, they're extremely profound Vedantic teachings. How to turn toward the Atma. And here, Yamraj is using a method which we have seen before. Drik Drishya method. What is the Drik Drishya method? Drik means observer. Drishya means observed. Subject, object. So he's using the subject object method. What are the corollaries which you should remember when you use that method? I, the observer, number one, I, the observer, am always different from the object which I observe. That is, that is the first principle. What is the second principle? You should remember. We have done this any number of times. Not using the word Drikdesha method, but these two ideas, Vedantic ideas, we have done many times. The first idea is I, the observer, am always different from the object that I observe. The second idea is what? Any attribute which I experience, belongs where?
The object.
Object.
Any
Observe.
experienced attribute always belongs to the experienced object, never belongs to the experiencer. And therefore, since there are no attributes which belong to me, the observer, what am I? I am the Nirguna Chaitanya, the attributeless, attributeless consciousness. Right? Okay. So, yena, because of that consciousness principle, yena means because of that Sakshi Chaitanyam, that observer consciousness, Vijanati, a person experiences the entire objective universe, which consists of what? Shabda, Rupa, Rasa, Gandha, Sparsha. Anything which is seen through the five sense organs constitutes the universe. In fact, the universe is defined only in terms of these five sense organs. And that is why the whole universe is divided into five sections: Shabda, Rupa, Rasa, Gandha, Sparsha. Therefore, when he says that, he is meaning the entire universe. And Maithunyam. The Maithuna basically means contact, right? Coupled together. So while the normal understanding is that Maithunyam is sexual pleasure, we should take it here as in a more broader meaning. So any pair that should be taken, any coupling, any pair. For example, subject, the observer, and sparsha, the touch. That is one pair. That is Maithunyam. Subject, observer, and rupa, form, one pair. That is Maithunyam. So ultimately, we are saying that all interactions, any interaction which arises from any of the five senses, they generate pleasant and unpleasant sensations. Where else have you seen this?
Matra sparshastu
Matra
kaunteya.
sparshastu kaunteya. Okay. The idea of studying is that you constantly remember all the related mantras or slokas, and then it becomes very clear. So this is Maithunyam, not just physical between man and woman, but any coupling which is in the nature of subject and object. Then ete naiva vijanati. That is understood by this observer consciousness called Atma. Therefore, those five, Shabda, Sparsha, etc., means the entire universe. And Maithunya means all the interactions taking place. Etad Vaitat. This is the pervading consciousness which you asked about, the Atma which you asked about. And there is nothing in this creation Kim matra parishishyate. There is nothing in this creation which is outside that consciousness. And therefore, Herachiketas, etad vaitad, this pervading consciousness is what has to be claimed as Atma. This is what is mentioned here. So, very, very profound few verses, mantras. I will stop for today. In case you have any questions, we can answer them. No? Okay. So with this, we'll stop then. Thank you for your
Acharya ji,
patience.
so sorry. I have one question, Acharya ji. Could you just explain once again the existence principle? I was doing Maranam and I'm stuck at this, sorry.
So you tell me, what is the doubt?
So when it comes to existence, like as to what I understood, consciousness is what I am, and existence is when I look at someone outside, it exists because of me, the consciousness.
It's not
So we lend.
really
So as Brahman lends consciousness to an Atma because an Atma is mithya.
okay.
So
But
my doubt
if
is
you say that I lend consciousness, what precedes that?
because Nama Rupa is mithya, the substratum, the adhishtanam is Brahman itself. Because of that Brahman, everything exists. So that's why I, Brahman, lend consciousness. Oh, sorry, lend existence. But the Nama Rupa itself, the substance itself, that is also Brahman.
Fine. So I don't see the question where the doubt. See, you
So,
are the existence principle itself.
yes,
You cannot lend consciousness unless you exist.
correct,
And you cannot exist unless you are conscious of your existence.
correct.
Right? So that is
Ji,
why he says exist, sat and chit, they are not sequential, they are not different properties, they are all the same thing. And therefore, when you say I am lending existence, you are saying I am existing and I am conscious, and that conscious existence principle is capable of lending existence. When you say lending existence, basically it's you have to remember the way that gold lends existence to the bangle. How does it do that?
because the bangle is eventually nothing but gold.
So gold is the upadana karanam for the bangle.
True.
That upadana karanam status is the lending of existence.
Ji,
So therefore, when you say that I lend existence to the world, you are saying that I am the upadana karanam for the world. You as Brahman
ji.
are not upadana karanam for world.
The Maya is involved here, correct? The Saguna part.
Yes. So it is, remember that whenever you talk about world, you are talking about Saguna Ishvara. Saguna Ishvara has two parts,
Atma and Atma.
Brahman and Maya. So you are lending existence to the world by way of Maya's transformation into the world. It's a very important point. But Maya cannot transform into the world unless you are there, because Maya is dependent upon you. Therefore, you can hardly say that I lend existence to the world, but you are basically saying I am the Vivarta Padana Karanam.
Thank you
Without
so much,
changing,
Acharya.
I lend existence to the world.
Got it. The wave is nothing but water.
The wave is nothing but water. Yes.
Thank you so much, Acharya.
So with this, we'll stop for the day. ॐ पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः Om Tat Sat. Om Namah Shivaya. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you, Acharya ji.